If you're sick of your manifestations not working, this is a video that's going to help you a ton. Not only am I going to prove to you that visualization is the number one way to attract the life of your dreams and get what you want, but I'm also going to show you the science behind it, and then I'm going to show you at the end how to do it. So buckle up, let's get started. If we look at the structures of the brain, so we've got visualization versus affirmation, which is sight, versus language. You can also call that hearing. But language is actually a different part of the brain than hearing, the pathways, the neural pathways, the brain chemistry, whatever. And so neural pathways from sight are actually 500 million years old. The primitive vertebrates that humans evolved from actually had the ability to see very primitively. Those neural pathways that our brains developed from were actually in these vertebrates 500 years ago. Okay. When it comes to hearing, or really more language parts of the brain have only been in the brain that evolved into our brain 25 million years. Humans are about 300,000 years old. So you have this 300,000 year old species that evolved into what we are now, modern day human from Homo sapien. They have this brain that came from this 500 million year old brain. And so they've been seeing and developing that ability to see. And so if we look at the fact that our brains are literally developed from these mammalian, these vertebrae primitive brains, right there alone, we see that our brain's ability to see has been something that is much older and more developed than our ability to use language. Not to mention language socially, the social use of language is only about 100,000 years old. And sight is something that we've been using since the jump. It's actually the most important and the most developed sight. Humans are one of the only creatures that have the most developed sight. There's a few creatures. There's that one fish, I think it's a zebrafish. They see more colors. But ultimately, this, and I think you could agree with this, is our most powerful tool. It is our ability to see. That is, if you could only have one sense, right? Like, oh, would you rather hear or see? I'm going to assume most people would say vision, right? And that doesn't prove that visualization is better, but I'm going to prove to you, going through all these things together, that not only the fact that this is 500 million, that this is a 500 million year old neural pathway versus 25 million, but I'm also going to show you 4 other things that are going to factor into proving to you that this is the reason. Once I discovered this process, and there's a few things that I pieced together, part of it was from a process that is talked about in this book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Stoltz. This guy was a plastic surgeon, and he found out that even when he made people look perfect, sometimes they would still be kind of messed up about how they looked. And he got really interested in why the brain is so powerful, how perception can create reality. And then he realized that there are all these things that visualization can do in terms of increasing your ability to make more skills, create the feelings that you want, and literally attract your life. And I'm also going to include that process. So just stick around. You're going to get some, to quote NeuroKnowledge. All right, retention. Now, being able to retain information is one of the most important things that you can do. I think we'd all agree that matters, right? It's how you increase your knowledge. If you're in school, you have a job, and just in general, retaining information is outrageously important. Now, hearing literally is something that we can only retain 10% of. It requires much more repetition, and that's because of the low retention rate. Now, how many times have you had a conversation and you only remember 10% of it? Because your brain's only going to pick up on the really important stuff. And so whether or not you're intentionally not remembering, your brain filters out all the filler stuff, and it's only going to focus on a small select few things. And it can also only process, and we're going to talk about the processing speed of hearing versus sight. And so this is just really not a powerful way to retain things, is hearing. Just think about learning styles. We're going to go over that in a second. So reading, you're going to retain about 20%. I mean, how many times have you been reading and you just zone out? And you're like, oh God, I just read a paragraph. What am I doing? Reading, better than hearing though, right? It just, whatever reason, I don't know the science behind that. I just put the retention numbers. Seeing though, 80%. So think about it like this. When's the last time you used a landmark for directions? How many street signs did you see? Do you remember any of those street signs? But you definitely probably remember there was a McDonald's on that one corner before the turn you were supposed to turn on, right? Or even someone just sends you the directions. How much of them do you remember? But for whatever reason, you saw a few things on the way and that landmarked it. And now that is something that you can recall. And that wasn't even something that you intentionally tried to remember, whereas hearing, you definitely tried to remember, and reading, maybe probably tried to remember, right? And so your brain is literally processing so much visual information and actually remembering it that it can be used directionally. I mean, just think about the fact that directions and maps and language didn't exist, but people still needed to figure out how to navigate. Your brain is literally tuned to use vision as a navigation tool. And if your goal is to get to a place, i.e. your dream life, i.e. your dream partner, i.e. money, success, fame, glory, whatever, you need to be able to see it so you know how to get there. All right, let's move on. 3, learning styles. Now, this is essentially how people learn. And I know a lot of people think they're hands-on learners, but the raw reality is most people are going to retain the most information through visual learning. Think about the last time you were in school. If you're younger, it's probably easy to remember that. Like when you're reading a textbook, how nice is it when there's a visual to help represent what you're reading? That just ties it all together, right? It really is the fact that most people are going to be visual learners. Now, irregardless if you're hands-on or auditory, you're still going to retain more of what you see. That being said, if you're in these less common categories, there are things that you can do to still optimize using visualization, because your audition, your auditory skills, your ability to hear is actually tied to your seeing. Think about when you're looking somewhere and you hear a sound, it helps you directionalize it, right? And vice versa. So they've actually noticed when people's sight declines, their hearing can also decline. All right, let's move on. Last point, 4th point. There's 2 more actually. So let's talk processing speed. So your brain actually processes vision in 13 milliseconds. Just think about the speed of light versus the speed of sound. Now, I probably should have wrote that down, but I didn't. You can do your own research. Sound is much slower than light. When something happens, you see the lightning bolt and then you hear the lightning sound, right? You see the bat swing if you're in the back, and then you hear the crack from the baseball. So not only does your brain process light, vision, which is essentially light refractions off stuff everywhere, faster, it also is going to process that data faster. Now, sound is actually 500 milliseconds to a second. Those are both infinitesimally small numbers, irregardless of the fact that they're very close in terms of it being minimally timeline. Count 1 second. 1/1000. Here's a millisecond. That it's instant. Your brain is going vision, vision, vision. Your brain is literally geared for this. And just for funsies, your brain actually processes vision 60,000 times faster than it processes text. Okay, so your brain is literally made for vision. It is the oldest part of your brain. It's 500 million years old versus 25 million years old. And technically, those weren't actually in early Homo sapiens, didn't exist at that time. But the brain that we came from, the neural pathways for sight, it's 475 million years longer. Pretty sure if you had 475 million years to get good at something or to optimize or to grow or to develop, probably be slightly better. Think about Yoda. Basically, your vision brain, your visual cortex, your neural pathways for sight is Yoda. And then this language part is like, I don't know, Luke Skywalker. Yeah, it's great. I mean, we are great at language, but it's Yoda, bro. Like, let's go. Okay, talked about this. All right, now I want to talk about my method to visualize. I'm actually going to write on the board for this one, so bear with me. So there's 2 things that I do. And the easiest thing that you can do is, and this is not something that I started doing until recently because I'm anti this thing, is Pinterest. So every morning while I'm doing my morning stuff, so I'll get my stuff together, I'll feed my cat, my dog, I'll make coffee, go sit at my computer, drink my coffee, and I just scroll through Pinterest. And I've got a couple buckets that I put things in. So depending on what you want to attract, now I want to be like a multi-millionaire. So I have one bucket called millionaire. And in that bucket, it's all the possessions and items that would make me feel like a millionaire. So I've got some beautiful houses, cars, boats, things of that nature. I've got one called vacation. It's all the amazing vacations that I want to take. So there's these cool like oceans and beaches and blah, 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 ad nauseum. Now, depending on where you're at in your relationship, if you're single, then you can make one called girlfriend or boyfriend, and then make one called husband or wife. And this is something that I really like to do because there's going to be people that you're going to see that you might be interested in dating, but there's also going to be another even more specific category that you're only going to want to be your husband or wife, right? And so those are 2 different categories. And then you can add additional categories for like whatever you're trying to attract. So I'm an entrepreneur. And so I have a category called entrepreneur. And it's all these like classy business dudes and cool experiences that look businessy. And additionally, let me go back to the one about the relationship thing. What I like to do is not only are you going to search for things that look like the partner that you're interested in, you also want to find images really for all the categories that are POV style. So it looks like, you know, those pictures where it's someone like holding their hand back. They're a little lame, but stuff that makes you feel you're in the frame. You know, there's like a picture of a guy sitting at a computer and there's like an ocean, but you just see his hand. And so that's something that you can really like cast yourself into, and it makes you feel like you're there. And so here's the method. It's literally, you're just going to use Pinterest in the morning. You know, it's fun. It's fun to just look at stuff. What really helps there too is it's going to desensitize you. And so one of the big problems with trying to become wealthy or trying to attract a partner that you believe is perfect or get that job that you want or that money or that vacation, whatever, is because it's something that you desire and you have this neediness around, it makes you repel it. And by looking at it constantly, it becomes normal. So the more your brain can be exposed to this thing visually, and Pinterest is the easiest way to do this. You can use Google Images too, but Pinterest is cool because you can save it, and then it's going to create a preference profile. So you just hit your home button and you can scroll through it and you can see exactly more things that are related, however they do it, their algorithm. And so your brain's going to get desensitized because you're getting used to seeing these things. Oh, that girl that you thought was out of your league. Well, you've seen a gazillion pictures, scrolling through, saving it, going, that's my girlfriend, that's my wife. Same thing with guys to girls, whatever. And eventually your brain's like, oh, this is normal, this is normal, this is normal. Same thing with like big houses, same thing with cool cars, whatever, okay? It literally works to desensitize your brain to make it feel like it's more common, it's more normal. And I don't want you to think about how, because once you start thinking about how, your brain's going to include some cognitive dissonance. All you're doing here is looking. The Pinterest, I don't even need you to feel the feelings. I just need you to get used to looking at these things, and it's going to be happening subconsciously. Now, so that's the point one, is you got your Pinterest and you got your boxes for the things that categorically that you want to create. Now, I do that in the morning. The next thing that I do is before bedtime, because you want to lock in the visualization. You're going to lock it. And then while you're sleeping, you're going to bed with the feeling that having and living in the POV is going to make you feel. And your subconscious mind is then going to spend your entire evening while you're asleep working on that. Whatever that looks like, it doesn't matter, because that's a subconscious job. And as long as you're giving it the, hey, here's what we're doing tonight, it's going to do it for you, because the subconscious mind questions nothing. It just believes what you tell it. And so this is when you're going to actually do the visualization from imagination. And then I want you to feel the feelings. And so the way that I do it is I'm in my bed, and so I close my eyes and I imagine waking up in the room that I want to wake up in. I imagine walking out of that room, and you can imagine that that partner's next to you. Now again, if you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife, you don't need to worry about that. But then you can do cool stuff like do those POV things that make it look like you guys are on vacation, whatever. All right, so go back to this. So you can imagine that that perfect partner's next to you, or your current partner. I walk out of my room. I've got this really badass mansion. It's like a loft, these huge hallways. I walk out, I walk downstairs. My cat and my dog follow me. I feed them. I've got this baller ass kitchen. And I'm like, this is so cool. I'm feeling the feelings. And because I've looked at so many photos on Pinterest that look like these things that I want, it's really easy for my brain to create the visualizations. It's really easy for my brain to imagine, and I don't have to make it up. You know when you struggle to imagine? Well, this is pretty much fixing that, because I've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of images similar to my dream house, my dream partner, blah, blah, blah. My brain doesn't need to struggle to imagine, okay? And I'm feeling the feelings because I'm imagining. Now, when you just look at stuff in picture form, you don't feel the feelings as much. It's still programming your brain, but the real benefit here is it's giving your imagination the fuel. It doesn't have to make it up. It can just reference what you've already seen. 80% of that is you're going to retain, right? You're processing it at 13 milliseconds, blah, blah, blah. 65% of people are visual learners. So merely from just looking at Pinterest in the morning for 10, 20, 30 minutes, probably just 10 minutes is fine. You're making it so easy to visualize right before bed, maybe 5, 10 minutes, walk downstairs, I make my coffee, my animals run around outside, it's happy, and all the things, right? And so I just play out this clip in my mind. I feel really good. And then I knock out, and then my brain just goes to work. So it's super simple. So while you're doing this, you need to feel the feelings, and it's going to make you feel that way. You don't even have to try to feel that way. You don't have to try to feel the feelings. While you're imagining it with your eyes closed and you're feeling like you're experiencing it from this point of view, you're going to feel awesome. You never want to go to bed feeling bad. This is the number one way to make sure that you go to bed in a good mood. Lock it in. While your subconscious mind is very easy to print on, those, I believe it's alpha waves, right before you knock out, your brain goes into this lower, more chill. Your conscious mind is like kind of nodding off, and the door's open, and then you can be like, Pinterest, look, remember those stuff I remembered? Visualize, boom, lock it in, knock out. Your brain's going to go to work. Maybe you wake up with an amazing idea. Maybe you go buy a lottery ticket and you win. Who knows? This shit works though, just to prove it to you. And I maybe should have introduced this in the beginning. I've been doing this for the last 2 years. And ever since I started doing this, I was able to quit my corporate job. I've made millions of dollars. I've attracted tons of awesome, amazing people. Now, I'm still single just because by choice, because I'm building this awesome business, but not like I've literally attracted people that would be perfect if I wanted to date them, wanted to marry them, blah, blah, blah. You know, I've been able to travel the world. I have a place here in Chicago. I have a place in Vegas. I have a place in Austin. Like, this works. All I literally did was look on Pinterest and then visualize before going to bed and feel good. Once I realized that this part of my brain, the vision part of my brain, was exponentially more powerful, because everyone's looking for that secret, right? So think about if you wanted to make a cake and you're using a fork versus an electric mixer. Yeah, the fork still works. You can still use affirmations. Okay? Yeah, the retention's not going to be as good. You're not going to be as good at the learning of it, which is just really important in terms of retention and your brain actually printing it. Like, I believe this. Yeah, it's not going to process as good. But hey, you can use a fork. You can use a fork to stir batter. It's going to take you longer. It's going to be a little messier. But if you want to use an electric mixer, you'll be done in like 2 minutes. This is going to take you like 10 minutes. So any tool can really get you there, but scientifically, visualization is the best tool. And I've just proven that to you. And so this is how you're going to do it. Leave me a comment because I want to know if you're visualizing or what manifestation technique you're doing. Also, make sure if you want the guide, because I have a more in-depth version of this. I'm standing right in front of it. I have a more in-depth version of actually how to do this. Just leave a comment and say visualization, and I will make it live on the video. I haven't put it on the opt-in page yet, but let's get this going. I want to see your guys' comments. I really need engagement so we can blow up this channel, and I want to help you guys. And I promise you, if you do this, look on Pinterest for 10 minutes and then do your visualization before bed. Set a reminder on your phone. Okay, time to do the Pinterest. Okay, about to go to bed, time to visualize. Boom. This is 20 minutes a day, tops. It's going to change the way you feel, think, and act. And you will start noticing, oh, wow, why don't I feel uncomfortable around this person that I wanted to talk to? Oh, why don't I feel like I can't accomplish these things? Oh, why don't I feel like my dreams are out of reach now? And it's going to make you feel more confident because your brain's now desensitized to these things that you once believed you didn't deserve. It's not that you believed you don't deserve them. It's that you wanted them, needed them, had to have them. So you pedestaled them, and the visualization desensitizes them, and they're going to bring them onto your level. And that's going to make it so much easier to move forward confidently. And confidence is going to be the thing that's going to allow you to create the dream life that you want, deserve, and are supposed to have. So make sure you like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate you watching. Peace, love, be good.